Welcome to this dramatic therapy monologue. Listen to this meditation with an open mind and heart. In between each part, focus on your breath. Start now by inhaling deeply through your nose and slowly exhaling through your mouth. Then gently turn your attention to the natural rhythms of your breath. I want to tell you something that I have not told many people. I am a man who used to believe that if a thing was not captured, it did not count. If there was no picture, no proof, no witness, then maybe I had not really lived it. That belief did not come from nowhere. It came from old rooms and old silences. It came from being a boy in a house where feelings sank like stones in dark water. My father could pass through a room like weather, heavy, cold, unanswerable. My mother smiled for neighbors and church friends, but inside the house she moved like a woman trying not to wake a sleeping animal. I learned early that what was not spoken could still shape a life. I learned that absence could be the loudest thing in a room. When I was 12, I won a little school prize for a story I wrote. Nothing grand. Just a paper ribbon and a cheap certificate with my name spelled right for once. I carried it home like it was a gold brick. I remember the smell of dust in the hallway, the weak yellow light over the stove, the sound of the television muttering to itself. My father looked at the paper, nodded once and said, "That is nice." Then he went back to his plate. It should not have hurt as much as it did, but it did, because I had believed proof would save me. I had believed that if I held up evidence of my heart, somebody would finally see me. That little lie followed me into manhood like a stray dog with human eyes. So I became a collector of proof. I took photographs of dinners before the food got cold. I posted sunsets like I had painted them myself. I recorded birthdays, road trips, coffee cups in windows, my own face trying on happiness from one angle and then another. I kept notes on my phone about thoughts that should have drifted away naturally. I did not trust memory. I did not trust privacy. If a moment was lovely, I felt the old panic rise up at once. Save it, show it, nail it to the wall before it dies. I smiled into lenses while my real life stood just off camera, waiting for me like a patient ghost. And all the while, something in me was thinning out. I could feel it, though I did not have words for it then. My days looked full, and yet they rang hollow when I lay in bed at night. It was as if I had become the groundskeeper of my own existence, trimming hedges, labeling paths, arranging every flower bed for strangers to admire, but never once sitting down in the garden to feel the sun on my face. I do not say this with pride. I say it with grief, because I think many of us do this. We stand outside our own lives and wave at them as they pass. Think now of the past week. Not the biggest thing, not the polished thing. Think of a moment that was not photographed, not posted, not recorded anywhere. A small pleasure, a private thought, a quiet minute alone. Hold it in your mind as if it were precious, because it is. Maybe it was steam rising from a cup in the early morning while the house was still. Maybe it was the relief of taking off your shoes after a long day. Maybe it was the shape of rain on the window. Maybe it was the strange mercy of sitting in your car after parking, not ready to go inside yet, and for 1 minute belonging to no one. That minute matters. It matters even if no one knows it happened. I had a moment like that last week. I was standing at the sink, late at night. Nothing dramatic. Just the kitchen light on, the rest of the house dark, one plate in my hand, soap bubbles sliding over my knuckles. Outside, the wind was moving through the trees with that dry whisper it has in the cold months, like dead leaves gossiping in the dark. I looked up and saw my reflection in the window, floating over the yard like a pale stranger. And for 1 clean second, I felt peaceful. Not happy in a loud way, not victorious. Just quiet. Just here. The plate in my hand, the warm water, my own breathing. It was a small life. It was enough. Then the old machinery started up inside me. You know that machinery. The gears of habit, the grinding belt of fear. A voice said, "This is good, you should save it. Take a picture of the sink light. Write something about stillness. Make this moment useful. Make it visible. Make it count." I actually dried my hand and reached for my phone. That is how deep the hunger went. Not hunger for joy, hunger for evidence, hunger for witnesses, hunger for somebody, somewhere, to nod at my life and tell me it had substance. And standing there with my phone in my hand, I felt something ugly crawl up from the basement of my past. It was not just vanity, it was terror. The old childhood terror that if nobody saw me, I would disappear. That if a moment lived only in me, it could be erased as easily as chalk in rain. I saw then that I had spent years treating my inner life like contraband, smuggling it out for public inspection, because I did not believe it was safe with me alone. I did not believe I could be trusted to keep my own treasures. I did not believe my soul had a right to a locked door. That was the crisis. It hit me hard enough that I had to sit down. I sat at the kitchen table, the phone beside me like a loaded weapon, and I remembered being 15 years old, standing in a school hallway after a dance. I had asked a girl to dance and she laughed. Not cruelly at first, but then her friends heard and joined in, and it turned into a kind of public weather. I can still feel the heat in my face. I can still hear my own laugh, that fake laugh boys use when they are trying to survive humiliation without bleeding in public. After that, I learned to pre-edit myself. I learned to offer only what would be approved. I learned to seek the crowd before I sought my own pulse. And over the years, that habit dressed itself up as normal life. At the table, in that small pool of kitchen light, I understood something that made me want to weep. I had not only been documenting my life, I had been asking permission to have one. I had been bringing my secret joys to the town square like a starving child with a tin cup. Is this worth anything? Is this enough? Am I enough? That is a hard sentence for a man to say out loud. It feels like tearing open floorboards and letting people see the crawl space underneath. But there it was, bare, shaking, true. So I did the smallest brave thing I have done in years. I turned the phone over. I left it dark. I picked up the plate again. I felt the slick curve of it in my hand. I listened to the faucet run. I let the moment remain unclaimed by anybody but me. And at first it felt wrong. It felt wasteful, almost sinful, like leaving money in the street. But then another feeling came. Slow and deep. Relief. A deep animal relief. The kind a body feels when it finally stops performing injury and starts healing for real. I did not need to make that minute into a story. I did not need to convert it into proof. I only needed to live it. Do you hear me? The undocumented life is not the unlived life. It is the most private form of wealth you possess. There are rooms in the heart that do not need visitors. There are candles that burn brighter with no audience. There are moments that come to you like shy, wild creatures, and the fastest way to frighten them off is to shine a crowd-sized light into their eyes. Some things become holy precisely because they are unshared, not secret from shame, secret from reverence, kept, not hidden, protected, not denied. I think of all the little things I almost gave away. The sound of my own laughter in an empty car. The way my chest loosened when I stepped into cold air before dawn. The private mercy of crying once, just once, in the grocery store parking lot after a hard phone call, then wiping my face and feeling stronger for it. No camera touched those moments. No caption framed them. They still happened. They changed me anyway. maybe more deeply because no one reached in to name them before I could feel them myself. So if you have carried that same old fear, that if it is not seen, it will not count, I want to sit with you in that fear for a minute. I know its smell. I know its voice. It sounds practical at first. It sounds modern. It sounds like keeping up. But underneath, it is often an old wound wearing new clothes, a child who was overlooked, a teenager who was mocked, a young man who mistook applause for safety. We learn these bargains early. We think visibility will save us. Sometimes it does the opposite. Sometimes it makes us abandon ourselves in public, one polished piece at a time. Now here is the turn, and I need you to feel it. There is another way to live, a stronger way, a quieter way. You can let one good thing remain yours, then another, then another. You can drink a cup of coffee by a window and never tell a soul. You can have a beautiful thought and not export it. You can forgive somebody in silence. You can watch the moon snag on bare branches and let the moment dissolve into your blood instead of into a device. You can become rich in a currency that no market can touch. When I finished the dishes that night, I turned out the kitchen light and stood in the dark for a moment. The window became a mirror again. There I was, older than I expected to become, softer around the edges, a face marked by grief and years and trying. And I felt tenderness for that man, real tenderness, not because he had finally learned how to present himself, because he had finally stopped, because he had let 1 minute of his life die nowhere except into him, because he had allowed himself to be the sole witness, because for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. So hold your own undocumented moment now. Hold it gently. Do not drag it into the street. Do not pin it down. Let it rest in your hands like something warm and living. A small pleasure, a private thought, a quiet minute alone. Precious because it happened. Precious because it was yours. Precious because no machine touched it and no audience thinned it out. You lived it. That is the whole miracle. You lived it. And if some old voice rises up tonight and says, "Prove it," answer calmly, "No, I do not need to prove my life to live it." If it says, "Show me," answer, "Some things are sacred." If it says, "No one will know," answer, "I will know. I was there. I am here." That is enough. More than enough. That is wealth. That is shelter. That is a soul with a door that locks and a fire that does not go out. Breathe now. Let the breath move in and move out. Let your mind soften around the truth that not every beautiful thing must be displayed to be real. Some of the most important parts of you will never be photographed. Some of the most healing moments of your life will leave no record except the one written quietly into your nervous system, your memory, your heart. Trust that record. Trust the life within the life. Trust the sacredness of what nobody else gets to touch. And when you rise from this, carry one private piece of joy with you, like a hidden coin, warm in your palm, and know that you are richer than you have been taught to believe.